Burke.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Officer Burke. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the president of the Gay Officers Action League, Detective Brian E. Downey.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Pride. I would like to welcome you all to One Police Plaza, the heart of the agency that I have called my home for the past 16 years. Like many members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, two-spirit, ally, and beyond community, no matter where we are, whether it be at work, at a restaurant, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, we often don't feel home all the time, sometimes more not than so. When the Gay Officers Action League was founded in 1982, and even before that, when Charlie Cochran became the first forward-facing, openly gay police officer when he outed himself while testifying in favor of gay rights legislation in front of the New York City Council in November of 1981, this was not our home. Many of us still don't feel at home, but we have been working outly and proudly for over 40 years to make this our home, and things are getting better. Things get better when GOAL, the department, and the activist community come together to create change. Like the patrol guide revisions in 2012, it spoke on police and trans community interactions. That was accomplished while working together. Things get better when a few years ago, and as far as we know, this police department became the first in the nation to provide its members a clear procedure to protect the rights of transgender and gender nonconforming people seek to transition and live openly and safely in this space. Things get better when we all work together and we all show up. Things get better when we rely on the lived experiences of our people that work here to guide this agency. Like Lieutenant Anna Arboleta, who was thrown out of her house because of her sexual orientation, who didn't know where her next meal was coming from, who put herself through school, who graduated college, who earned a master's degree, who recently graduated from the FBI National Academy, who serves as the police commissioner's principal advisor on LGBTQIA+ matters, and who has also trained thousands of police officers in LGBTQ sensitivity and awareness. Things get better when our GOAL membership comes into work, puts on the uniform and stands out and proud. Like Detective Andrew Cummings, an absolute rock star, an NCO in a 4A precinct. Like Officer Miguel Ronquillo, a training officer in the 108 precinct. Like Sergeant Tony Ann Groth, the domestic violence sergeant in the 7-3 precinct. Like Detective Gregory Madry, a special victims investigator. Like our community outreach unit in the back with the giveaways, all goal members. I'd like to ask everyone here to please give a round of applause to the members of the Gay Officers Action League who've worked hard to support this event. This work does not get done without partnerships, community partnerships. I see so many community leaders here today, and I want to thank you for coming here, for taking the courage to come here, to be here with us to listen to this important information. I'd like to thank our District Attorney from Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, for being here with us today. I see you, Kathy Marino-Thomas. I see you, Steve Ashkenazi. I see you, Bruce Pachter. I see you, Jim Burke. Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for standing with us today. And when we talk about change and we talk about partnership, we cannot do it alone. We have been blessed with an amazing executive staff who is currently and for the last several years has proudly stand behind us. When I think about people that have our back, I think about years ago when I worked in this building and there was a threat of violence against a community youth ball in the confines of the 7-5 precinct, and I responded there, lights and sirens, to find the commanding officer of Patrol Borough Brooklyn North and now our chief of department standing there waiting for me. And the first words out of his mouth, "Bri, what do you need?" When I think about a partnership, I think about the fact that the Gay Officers Action League has stood behind the Pride Center of Staten Island in making sure that there are LGBTQIA plus representation in the Staten Island St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think about how we had to have a separate parade and we were just going to join in and march with the Pride Center. But in talking to our first Deputy Commissioner and Staten Islander, Tanya Kinsella, she said, no, Bri, turn them out. We're going to show up. We're going to let them know that we are part of the community, that we're here, that we stand out and proud. And in coming here this afternoon, the main reason that I'm standing behind this podium right now is to introduce a person that has been an amazing partner, not just to me, but to the Gay Officers Action League, who has promoted more LGBTQIA plus persons to prominent positions in this police department, more than anyone I can remember, and I've been doing this since 2016. And I think about those promotions. I see newly minted full inspector Kevin Coleman sitting over here on my left and your right. I see detective transgender outreach ombudsperson for Goal and for the NYPD, CJ Lang in the back. Thank you, Commissioner. It is my privilege and high honor to introduce the Gay Officers Action League 2023 Ally Award recipient and a man that I thank God every day I wake up that I get to come in here and go to work for, the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable Edward Caban.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Pride Month. Every June, the NYPD celebrates everything that Pride means for the members of our department and for the people of this city. It means the freedom to love who you choose and to love who you are. It's also an opportunity to reflect on the history that brought us here and to honor the pioneers who stood firm in the face of adversity. But unfortunately, what should be a time for joy and celebration is also a reminder of all the evil that exists in this world. So we must plan accordingly to ensure this month is also safe. Many of you are already aware of the PSA put out last month by the FBI and DHS. My team and I are also aware of this, and we are also aware of the real concerns that many of you have about the safety at your parades, venues, and other gatherings. You'll hear more details about that in a minute from our Deputy Commissioner, Rebecca Weiner, who is the head of the NYPD's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau. She and her team are some of the best in the country, and they're closely monitoring all the chatter. But whatever the intel says, the NYPD stands ready to ensure that all the events this month remain moments of celebration. There will be safety measures that you will see, and there will be some that you won't see. These increased protections began last weekend with the Pride Parade in Staten Island and will bring us through to the main event on June 30th. But you should know, your safety isn't just a topic every June. It's a constant, everyday focus that the NYPD takes very seriously. Over the last year, we've expanded the number of liaisons and fully staffed our outreach unit. We've enhanced our hate crimes tracking and investigations capacity, and we also unveiled a resource map which enables our cops to better connect with those in need, with those who care. And we don't do any of this alone. Working with our Gay Officers Action Lead and dedicated liaisons, we make informed decisions that forge meaningful change. Everyone gathered here today is part of that mission, and your partnership is critical to the overall success of this month. Because Pride Month isn't really as much about the events as it is about the people. So this month, let's celebrate people, celebrate love, and celebrate pride. Stay safe, and thank you all for being here today, and God bless.
And thank you, Commissioner Caban. And now to give us an intelligence briefing, it's my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, Rebecca Weiner.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Pride. You know, the police commissioner just mentioned it. This year, there has been more warning around threats than there have in years past, so we thought that it would make sense to do, instead of our annual celebration, collective celebration of the month ahead, get a little bit into the weeds on some of the threats. You know, the real point that we want to make during this presentation, this is not meant to be scary. This is meant to make everybody aware. So our goal here is awareness, not scaredness. But it is important for folks to know as you're going around your celebrations over the next 3 weeks, our collective celebrations, that the world right now is a bit topsy-turvy. There's always been plenty of hate and plenty of violence, and it is important for folks to keep all of that in mind and be aware, and to continue the amazing partnership that we've relied on with the community for years in making sure we are all adequately equipped to deal with whatever comes our way. And after I give you this briefing, you're going to be hearing from our Chief of Department about all that we're doing to keep you safe as we go about our business. You know, just a flag of a couple of events, the sequence of the next few weeks from this Saturday with Brooklyn Pride into the Yankees game on the 18th, and then the 28, 29, 30 are the big events. But throughout the month, there's going to be countless other smaller events. And those events, too, important that we all maintain situational awareness that we need. So as the police commissioner mentioned, a couple weeks ago on May 10th, FBI and DHS issued a terrorism warning ahead of Pride Month. And some of this they do every year, and we are always thinking about threats that we're seeing and how they may manifest in our cities, accompanied a few days later by a State Department warning. And this comes on the heels of a couple of attacks by ISIS in Iran in January, in Russia in March, and a sense that some of these networks that had been in a bit of abeyance for a couple of years are re-energized, and that's why we are all here today. So we're going to talk about the threat landscape as it exists right now, and we're going to focus on propaganda and precedent to give you a sense of what the online world is saying in terms of some of these threats and how we can think about them in terms of incidents that we've seen. All of this grounded in the absolute assurance that we are not concerned. We are going to keep this city and its celebrations safe over the next 3 weeks, as we do every other day of the year. ISIS has a habit of putting out propaganda focusing on Pride Month every May. They are continuing to do that, and they often reference what was the paradigmatic attack against the LGBTQIA+ community in the U.S., which was in June of 2016, the Pulse nightclub shooting, another attack by an ISIS-inspired lone actor. So this year is no exception. A couple of new ISIS propaganda pieces, which are doing two things, as we see in terrorist propaganda all the time. The idea is to incite and inspire fear and violence. The incitement of fear is something that we collectively control, how scared we become when we see this propaganda. The incitement to violence is something that we as the NYPD spend our days preventing. So all of this noise that's out there in the digital world, we're the ones pouring through it, looking for the signal, and that we continue to do very energetically. Last year, there were a number of threats associated with Pride activities around the world. This one was disrupted pretty publicly. It was a threat for the Vienna, Austria Pride Parade, in which 3 ISIS-inspired individuals were disrupted. So that's one way to think about ISIS. ISIS, of course, the topic of these warnings by the FBI, DHS, and State Department. Also important to note that the racially and ethnically motivated violent extremist world, what we call the REMV threat, so your neo-Nazis, your accelerationists, your white supremacists, have focused historically and are currently focused on the LGBTQIA+ community. And again, through propaganda and through some targeting and some threats. And those of you in the back of the room may have a hard time reading some of these slides, but it gives you a sense of the kinds of memes that circulate online, a lot of focus on corporations who have invested heavily in promoting their outreach to LGBTQIA+ community on the issue of Drag Story Hour, which we're going to get to in a few moments. And certain groups, the group on the far right, it's called Mordwaffen SS, is a relatively newer REMV group focused on Europe, which has been doing a lot of online threats. And again here, the goal is incitement of fear, inspiring violence, trying to mobilize a base of supporters. It's speech until it isn't. It's a threat that we can investigate sometimes. And it exists in the digital world. The concern, of course, is how it may mobilize people to action. What you often see with this kind of propaganda, which is why we pay such close attention to it, especially in the white supremacist, accelerationist world, is a lot of hat tips to prior events and attacks that were successful, and encouraging followers of these groups to carry out attacks in the names of those who came before them. So the group I mentioned a few minutes ago, Mordwaffen, is encouraging attacks against European pride in the honor of an attack at a gay bar in Bratislava, Slovakia, which happened about 18 months ago, which was followed a month later by the Club Q incident in Colorado. And then a firebombing of a Planned Parenthood by an individual that had sought to attack an LGBTQIA+ event in Dodger Stadium. So there's a cyclical nature to these threats, And the idea is encouraging the violence will then beget violence, which can then continue the cycle, which is why our collective intervention and focus on the issues are so important. Want to focus in particular on the trans community because that's been a subject of focus for threat actors online and offline. You can see, if you can read some of the slides, some of the rhetoric that we find online. Again, it's vile, it's hateful. Sometimes it crosses over the line and becomes a crime that we can then investigate and prosecute. But the concern is, with whom is it resonating? When does it become into a longer-term investigation? And there's been a focus on threats, on doxing, on swatting, to hospitals that are engaged in or who are perceived to be engaged in gender-affirming care. So there's 27 states right now across the country who are in the process of potentially constraining the way gender-affirming care is given and available to youth. This is a national conversation. It's a conversation that a lot of people have opinions about, but it's a conversation that we're trying very hard to make sure doesn't erupt into any kind of violent or concerning behavior in our city. There's 24 or so hospitals that have been victims of threatening behavior based on gender-affirming care, and this is something that we're going to continue to see not just through the month, but afterward. The Drag Story Hour conversation has been, again, a nationwide issue. There have been incidents of violence. There have been frequent protests. And here in the city, we had a number of clashes around Drag Story Hour, and we relied heavily on you as a community to flag to us events that we were able to help keep safe. So good example of sustained partnership that we rely on from the community. And that has quieted down, but again, with the attention of Pride Month comes more of a concern around some of these events. And they have been a range of behavior and activity. Thankfully, here in New York City, it's been more about protests and less around some of the more violent activity that you see on the left side of the slide. Another element of threat that has grown in recent years, some of these are persistent, they've been there forever, but the impact of the digital landscape on threat vectors is considerable, and in particular, we've seen a rise in techniques and tactics, not just related to the LGBTQIA+ community, related to what's going on in Israel and Hamas, of swatting and doxing and online threats that can nonetheless be incredibly disruptive. So we would anticipate some swatting threats and some potential doxing related to Pride activities. Here, again, important for community members to understand. When you're getting bomb threats called into you, we will of course respond. We treat everyone with the seriousness that it deserves. But in terms of managing the reaction to it and trying to understand that this has become an increasing tool in a toolkit of disruption and of destabilizing people, calibrate the response. And we've done a lot of outreach and messaging around how to deal with swatting to other communities. That's just something that people should be aware of here. Last issue I want to flag quickly is that of intersectionality, which is such an important one for the LGBTQIA+ community broadly. What we see online is a conflation between anti-LGBTQIA+ sentiment, anti-Semitism, anti-everything. So those who are anti tend to be anti in a very broad sense. Our goal, of course, is to make sure that thoughts, the expressions remain First Amendment protected, not get into the realm of criminality and disruption and inciting fear. So a lot of online rhetoric that is conflating the, quote, agenda of certain communities with the pernicious influence of others, and in particular the Jewish community. This is just important for us to be aware of as we find threat actors in one space, understand that they may quickly pivot to wanting to target another. And lastly, we know that the issue of the war is one that has been preoccupying to large swaths of our city. And the LGBTQIA+ community is no different. Strong opinions held lots of strong opinions and diverse opinions throughout this community. Really important as we get into this month, which would be a month of unity, of celebration, of bringing people together. As strong as those views are and as important as those conversations are, we are underlining the need to keep them peaceful, to keep the protests peaceful, and to remember that New York is an extraordinary place, a place where people can be whoever they are, however they want to be, and we all do it collectively together as one community. Messaging around some of these issues, we put out to our SHIELD community, and we've got SHIELD here in the back. If any of you are not SHIELD members, I encourage you to become one, and you'll get some intel from us, not just on this issue, not just these 3 weeks, but all year round, around late-breaking issues. And so we put out what we call an event threat assessment on Pride Month. So you can get this, you can't read it from the back or the front, and it's small print, but it gives you a sense of what we're seeing and how we're thinking about it, and also what you can do, steps that you can take to protect your events and your communities better. So I encourage you as you leave this afternoon to go stop by SHIELD and get a sense. This is the number that we give in every briefing, 1-888, if you see something, say something, NYC SAFE. That is really important as you're going about your day, as you're preparing your celebrations, as you're doing this, again, every other day of the year. When you see something that has you concerned, don't ever think it's too small. Don't ever feel that it is insignificant. That is the bread and butter of what we rely on, as well as our own investigative efforts. But we really value your contributions. You're often going to see things before we may get to them, particularly given the complexity and the nuance and the speed with which today's threat environment moves. A lot of additional resources. You're going to be hearing from some of my colleagues in a few minutes about some of them. But just reach out to us early and often. I wish you all a very happy, healthy, and safe Pride Month, and we are here to make it safer and better for all. So thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Weiner. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker today, the Chief of Department, Jeffrey Madry.
Good afternoon, everyone. Usually when a police commissioner speaks, my job is done. I don't have to speak for the day. But Anna told me I had to speak today. Where's Anna at? Anna twisted my arm. She said, you have to speak today, Chief. So I just want to say welcome to everyone here, all the community leaders, elected officials. I see Councilmember Bacha, Councilmember Carr was here somewhere. Give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here. Again, everyone from the community, and of course everyone from our LGBTQIA+ community, thank you for being here. Brian, when you were speaking, you said something, and it hurt my heart when you said that some of our members here, some of our members, our members in gold, feel like they don't have a home here. I want to assure you that each and every one of you are loved and valued members of this department, all right, and that you have a home here. Okay? The only person who doesn't have a home here, person, thing, is hate. Hate has no home here in 1PP. Hate has no home in this city. So I want everyone to be assured of that. Your cops, we're here. We're going to have the watch for this month, particularly this Pride Month, with some of the intel that Commissioner Weiner just went over. We are here. We're going to be hyper-focused. We're going to be highly visible. We're going to be working to make sure that our community is safe, all right? We will have a tremendous amount of assets out there during the Pride celebration. We'll be bringing out all the units, counterterrorism units, intelligence, a bureau, of course, our detective bureau, hate crime, under the leadership of Inspector Marcus. We will all be there. K9, special operations, to make sure that the events and all the surrounding events are safe. We want our community to know, all right, and I'm talking about all of our outside community to know that we will be here. We will be sensitive to their needs. We will make sure we do our best to meet everyone's needs. When I was the Chief of Community Affairs, when I took over, the LGBTQ outreach team had one person assigned to it. We immediately pushed that up to 8 to make sure we were getting out to the community. And I know Commissioner Stewart has been pushing those numbers even higher to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. So I don't need to be long because so many other people spoke and will speak. But again, I just want all of our community to know that we will be here. The NYPD will be in full force. We will make sure that we have a safe event, and we will help you however we can. So we stand with you during this Pride Month, and we stand with you always. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Madry. And now to give us a hate crimes briefing, it's my pleasure to introduce the commanding officer of the Hate Crimes Task Force, Deputy Inspector Gary Marcus.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see all of you here today. I'm Deputy Inspector Gary Marcus, Commanding Officer of the NYPD's Hate Crime Task Force. I want to thank Police Commissioner Caban, First Deputy Commissioner Kinsella, Chief of Department Madry, and all of our executives for having an for their unwavering leadership through every climate. I would also like to acknowledge Lieutenant Anna Arboleta and Detective Dominic Martorelli of the Police Commissioner's Liaison Unit. And of course, Detective Brian Downey, President of the Gay Officers Action League. As head of the NYPD's Hate Crime Task Force, it's not just my job to oversee investigations involving offenses committed against intentionally selected individuals based on their race, color, national origin, gender identity or expression, religion, or sexual orientation. It's also my responsibility to ensure the safety of those who have been afflicted by these forms of bias. The hardworking members of the Hate Crime Task Force share the same mission of public safety with all of our local, state, and federal agency partners, and with our law enforcement colleagues around the world. Here in New York City, we carry on the efforts passed to us by our dedicated patrol officers who encounter bias incidents in the field. And together, we ensure that everyone who violates the rule of law is held accountable for their actions. Rest assured, our investigators leave no stone unturned. They work tirelessly with each of our district attorneys to provide a measure of solace to anyone affected by these abhorrent criminals. And please know that our work does not end at the boundaries of New York City. We pursue every lead, regardless of the severity of the crime, and we will walk across every county and state line until our cases are closed. For example, just last year, we were alerted to the deliberate removal and desecration of LGBTQIA+ pride flags displayed at the Stonewall National Monument, mere footsteps from the historic Stonewall Inn. And just as in every case presented to us, our investigators ran down every lead to identify, locate, and arrest the perpetrators of that atrocious act. And with the help of our partners in the state of Colorado, the offenders responsible for that vandalism were swiftly returned to New York, where they were held to full account in a court of law. But the triumphs of justice do not always dry our tears. I know that our hearts are still pained by the tragic murder of O'Shea Sibley, who was taken from us in a horrific act of violence last July. O'Shea harbored an immense sense of pride in the individual he presented to the world, while no doubt understanding his vulnerability to prejudice and harm. After his senseless killing, our Hate Crime Task Force, together with detectives from Brooklyn South Homicide, worked relentlessly with multiple city entities, including the DA's office, to identify and apprehend his assailant. having shown an utter disregard for human life, and then especially outward hostility toward O'Shea's sexual orientation, O'Shea's killer was charged with murder in the second degree as a hate crime. Quite often, it's necessary for the police department to rely on the assistance of others to resolve issues, even though we boast the first and largest hate crime unit in the nation, as well as right now, the most robust hate crime unit we've ever had in the history of the NYPD. We need your help to put evil behind bars. Each day, your hate crime task force liaises with the police commissioner's office and with every precinct, transit district, housing area, precinct detective squad, and most importantly, with you, to help solve our most complex cases. Today, I am here to provide reassurance to everyone who will participate in New York's Pride events this month, and to urge you to celebrate without fear and with the utmost excitement and joy. But please, if you believe you are the victim of a crime or bias incident, do not hesitate to call 911 or tell a police officer or flag down a patrol car or walk into a police facility. Regardless of how you choose to report, the single most important thing that you can do is in fact report it, because we cannot investigate what we do not know about. Every member of the NYPD, including and especially our neighborhood coordination officers and our community affairs cops, are always available to field your questions, inquiries, and concerns. Remember, your concerns are vital to our ongoing mission of public safety. Please know that the NYPD's Hate Crime Task Force, your Hate Crime Task Force, is here for your protection. We are committed to you and to the entire LGBTQIA+ community and to everyone in every neighborhood. I wish each of you a very safe and an extraordinarily happy Pride. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Deputy Inspector Marcus. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs, Mark Stewart.
Good afternoon. Happy Pride. I know. Listen, I don't usually speak after the police, the commissioner or the chief of department, but I'm the closer today. Just wanted to, before I start, I want to take time out to recognize Detective Brian Downey. Can you stand down? Anna. Is Dom here tonight? Dom. So my first month here, we all met in my office. And I knew I was on trial to see if I really fit or was going to do the job properly. I'm still here, so we must have did the right thing, Anna. So Anna told me that, can I borrow the LGBTQIA+ detectives? And I was like, Anna, we all work for the same job. NYPD. That is who we work for, and our goal is to make sure that the LGBTQIA+ community is safe. And I think from that day, the relationship started off very well. Following the PSA and the FBI and the DHS, our Community Affairs Bureau, along with our LGBTQIA+ outreach unit, has been actively working to make sure all New Yorkers are safe, included, respected, no matter what their sexual orientation or gender identity is. Our LGBTQI outreach unit is committed to the meeting to the community's unique needs. Our officers have recently visited the LGBT bars across all 5 boroughs, offer nightlife crime prevention tips. They are also collaborating with our crime prevention officers to visit the high-risk neighborhoods of the LGBTQI communities. Additionally, the Community Affairs Bureau members are actively participating in various community events, including Pride Month, celebrations, and other LGBTQIA activities. Our officers are contributing to extensive training programs for all members of the service, focusing on sensitivity, awareness, understanding of the LGBTQIA+ community. The training is essential to ensure that our officers are equipped to engage in positive and professional and LGBTQI individuals. Our engagement not only shows our dedication to the community, but also provides opportunities for positive interactions between our officers and the LGBTQIA+ and our individuals. So with that, I want to say thank you, happy Pride, and I'll see you out there. God bless.
And thank you, Commissioner Stewart. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our safety briefing. On behalf of Police Commissioner Caban, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Lunch is provided here, so please enjoy lunch, enjoy the rest of your day, and have a happy and safe Pride Month.